Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going over my top 12 running back rankings and tiers for the 2024 fantasy football season. Now, it is important to note that this video is coming out in early May, so things are bound to change by the time you do your actual fantasy football draft in late August or early September, so this is just a very preliminary, a very early look into things. Before we get into things, though, if you guys do end up enjoying, please make sure you hit that subscribe button down below if you're new. Whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure to leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. So without further ado, let's get into my top 12 running back rankings and tiers for the 2024 fantasy football season. We begin with the S tier at number 1 at the running back position with Christian McCaffrey, running back of the San Francisco 49ers, current underdog ADP running back 1 at pick 1.3. Now, this should come as a shock to absolutely nobody that Christian McCaffrey is my number 1 running back. This guy is just one of the most dominant running backs we have seen in fantasy football for what feels like a decade at this point. I know he hasn't been playing for that long, but Christian McCaffrey is downright amazing. When this guy is healthy, without shadow of a doubt, he will be guaranteed, if he plays in 16 or 17 games, in my opinion, a stone cold lock to be a top 3 running back. He was the running back 1 in PPR last year, the running back 1 in PPR points per game. He played in 16 games for the 49ers. He was 2nd in carries, 1st in rushing yards, 4th in targets, 3rd in receptions, 2nd in receiving yards, and 1st in total touchdowns. And Christian McCaffrey isn't just getting all of these yards because he's catching a million passes, because he gets a million carries. Now, sure, the fact that he sees 17 carries a game, the fact that he's getting 5.2 targets a game obviously help him elevate his game, but this guy is also uber efficient. 5th in true yards per carry, 3rd in yards per touch, 1st in yards created, and he ranked 4th in dominator rating, which is a running back's percentage of total team yards and team touchdowns generated on offense. He had a 34.6% dominator rating. Now I'm going to get off of my knees, right, and stop giving Christian McCaffrey the gawk gawk 9,000 special. We all know how great Christian McCaffrey is, and again, if he does not end up getting hurt, he is, in my opinion, a guarantee to be a top 3 running back in fantasy football this year. Now, one of the running backs that I think could end up dethroning Christian McCaffrey at number 1 is Breece Hall of the New York Jumbo Jets, current underdog ADP running back 3 at pick 7.8. Now, I do think that Breece Hall will end up being the running back 2 off of the draft boards come late August, early September, but right now he's the running back 3 behind Bijan Robinson, who is our running back 3. So Breece Hall, running back 2 in PPR last year, running back 6 in PPR points per game. The most impressive part of Breece Hall's season last year isn't necessarily his stats. The most impressive thing was that he was dealt a steaming pile of dog shit the second that Aaron Rodgers went down, and yet the guy still feasted. He was eating W's like his name was famous Jameis Winston, with Zach Wilson and Trevor Siemian under center. Trevor Siemian in the year 2023. Again, even though the team imploded, even though the team hit the metaphorical Titanic iceberg last season, the second Aaron Rodgers went down, Breece Hall, even in an offense that was downright incompetent, Breece Hall still finished top 3 in PPR, and he was top 6 in PPR points per game. 17 games played, 14th in carries, 13th in rushing yards, 1st in targets, 1st in receptions, 1st in receiving yards, and 12th in total touchdowns. 11th in yards per touch, 3rd in yards created, and 1st in dominator rating. There is not any competition behind Breece Hall that would concern me any way into thinking Breece Hall could lose his job. The offensive line has gotten better, and as long as Aaron Rodgers doesn't go out there and throw the ball like Stevie Wonder, I genuinely believe that Breece Hall has that shot to knock on the door and jump past Christian McCaffrey as the running back 1. To close out the S tier, we got Bijan Robinson of the Atlanta Falcons, underdog ADP running back 2 at pick 6.4. In Bijan's rookie year, I would say it was kind of a disappointment. Now, was he bad in any ways for a rookie? No. But I personally believe that Bijan Robinson would have gotten a bigger role in this offense than he was given because Arthur Smith basically bent this guy over a table. Running back 9 in PPR, 16 in PPR points per game, tied with Derrick Henry. 17 games played, 16 starts. He was 19th in carries, 15th in rushing yards, 3rd in targets, 6th in receptions, 4th in receiving yards, and 20th in total touchdowns. Now, despite the fact that he wasn't really given the best crack at things in his rookie year, he was 16th in true yards per carry, 9th in yards per touch, 5th in yards created, and 16th in dominator rating. Now, the biggest reason as to why we like Bijan Robinson is because now Bijan Robinson goes from Desmond Ridder being his starting quarterback to the starting quarterback being Kirk Thuggins, Coles Cash Kirk Cousins. Now, again, say what you want about Kirk Cousins, but at the end of the day, that motherfucker is levels above Desmond Ridder. Kirk Cousins, as long as that injury doesn't end up severely impacting him, then I think that this Atlanta Falcons offense is going to be very, very solid. I think that Bijan Robinson, with the proper coaching, getting the proper amount of touches, has that untapped potential to be the running back 1 overall. We said that last year, right? Going into his rookie season, we said that this guy has enough talent that he could be the running back 1 at the end of the year. Now, did it come to fruition? Fuck no, baby. But I definitely think it is much more likely to happen now that Arthur Smith and Desmond Ridder, the Riddler, are gone. Moving now to the A tier, running backs 4 through 6. At number 4, we got Saquon Barkley of the Philadelphia Eagles, underdog ADP running back 5 at pick 14.7. Last year in New York with the Giants, things didn't go too good for Saquon. Running back 13 in PPR, 9 in PPR points per game, 14 games played. He was 8th in carries, 16th in rushing yards, 15th in targets, 20th in receptions, 20th in receiving yards, and 11th in terms of total touchdowns. His true yards per carry number was downright terrible, 3.751st, but he was 3rd in dominator rating, 18th in yards created, and 15th in breakaway run rate. Saquon Barkley is still, like the Man of Steel, he is still on top of the charts, back in your hearts, right? Saquon Barkley is still one of the best running backs in the NFL. Now he goes from a team in the Giants that was a downright dumpster fire that went from Daniel Jones to Tyrod Taylor to fucking Tommy DeVito, the Italian stallion. Now he gets shipped off, right? He leaves the Giants and now he is an Eagle. Eagles with one of the best offensive lines in football. The Eagles, a team that wants to run the ball at an incredibly high rate. Now, again, if you drafted Saquon last year, you were a bit disgruntled. But if you drafted any Giants last year, you were very sad because that team just took a nosedive off the edge of the earth, Christopher Columbus style. So I really do think in Philadelphia, Saquon will be given all of the opportunities to rise again, given all of the opportunities to be the Saquon Barkley that we've come accustomed to in the past. At number 5, we got Jahmyr Gibbs, Gibby of the Detroit Lions, underdog ADP running back 4 at pick 12.1. Now, Jahmyr Gibbs has been someone who I've talked about a couple of times so far this offseason that has been pretty controversial. There's some people like myself who, while David Montgomery is still there, I am not overwhelmingly concerned with the fact that Dave Montgomery is there. Sure, is Dave Montgomery going to vulture Jahmyr Gibbs a couple times this season? Yes. Anything can be said about Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley, right? Is Dave Montgomery going to rear his ugly head? Not that he's like some ugly guy or something, pause, but, you know, he's going to show up at points, right? Dave Montgomery isn't some bum, so I don't think Dave Montgomery is going to get full-on phased out of this offense, right? But what I do think is that Jahmyr Gibbs is good enough to, even if he sees 13, 14 carries a game, he's so fucking explosive, he doesn't need that redonkulous amount of carries, right? He doesn't need that Christian McCaffrey workload. He doesn't need a Breece Hall level workload in order to succeed. This is a Lions team that's going to be up big at the end of games, and you're going to see a lot of Jahmyr Gibbs getting these cracks at a tired defense, and he is going to make them pay. Running back 10 in PPR, 8 in PPR points per game, 15 games played last year with 3 starts. He ranked 28th in carries, though, turning that into 17th in terms of rushing yards. 8th in targets, 9th in receptions, 16th in receiving yards, and 9th in total touchdowns. He ranked 7th in true yards per carry, 24th in yards created, 25th in dominator rating, and 22nd in yards per touch. Jared Goff loves to check the ball down. David Montgomery is never really going to be in there in the check down situations. All of the check downs are going to go to Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be granted a lot of opportunity and space playing behind an amazing offensive line in Detroit. I really do think that even with the limited rushing workload out of Jahmyr Gibbs, he'll make up for that with his explosiveness as well as his receiving ability out of the backfield. I get why you might be a little bit nervous, a little bit all shook up about Jahmyr Gibbs, but at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, I think this guy could easily should be a top 5 running back at the end of the season. At number 6 to close out the A tier, we got Jonathan Taylor of the Indianapolis Colts. Current underdog ADP running back 6 at pick 16. If you guys have enjoyed thus far, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below, as well as hitting that like button. It would help me out a ton. So running back 33 last year in PPR, 12 in PPR points per game, 10 games played last season with 7 starts. He missed the first 4 games of the season with an ankle injury, and then at some point in the middle of the season, he ended up getting hurt again with a torn thumb ligament. 16.9 carries per game, 74.1 rushing yards per game. Now, his target numbers weren't the best. I would have thought he would have gotten targeted more, but Anthony Richardson isn't necessarily the prototypical quarterback that he's no Jared Goff, just checking it down a million times. Like Tua loves checking the ball down to Devin 2 chains, right? But we don't see that as much with Anthony Richardson. But I'm not going to use just a couple of games sample size for Jonathan Taylor and just shit on him because of that. So 153 receiving yards, 8 total touchdowns, 20th, 6th in dominator rating. Again, a down year for Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor is another one of those guys where while, the stats might make you a little bit nervous, Jonathan Taylor a couple of years ago was one of the best running backs in the NFL. This is a guy that has the pedigree to be a top 3 running back in fantasy football. The Colts have the upside of being one of the better rushing offenses in the National Football League. So 1 year where Jonathan Taylor gets banged up, misses a couple games to get into the season, and then misses some time with a torn thumb ligament, I'm not really going to sit here and panic a ton. The Indianapolis Colts, another team with not a lot of competition around Jonathan Taylor. So I think this should be a season where at bare minimum, he's a top 8 guy again, as long as he could stay healthy. Next up, we move to the B tier here. At number 7, we got Kyren Williams. Now, for the S tier, the A tier, to me, I am not really worried at all about any of those guys. Now, injuries can happen to anyone, right? I could stand up after this video and fucking move the wrong way and my Achilles gets torn, or I tear my ACL somehow, right? I go try to brush my teeth in the morning and accidentally deep throat pause my toothbrush and choke to death, right? Anything can happen. I'm not going to sit here and just say that anyone is injury prone. At number 7, this is a guy that I would not even think about as injury prone, but this is where the nervousness starts to set in a little bit more. Kyren Williams of the LA Rams. He's definitely the most risky player we've talked about thus far. Underdog ADP running back 7 at pick 20.2. Running back 7 last year in PPR and 2 in PPR points per game with just 12 games played and 11 starts. Cam Akers was legitimately, I wouldn't even wipe my ass with Cam Akers. That's how bad he was. And then Kyren Williams came in and it was like a breath of fresh air, right? It smells like when you walk into a chick's room and they have like all of these candles lit, stuff like that. Just smells really good, right? It was like going from literally one of just the most embarrassing running backs in the NFL, Cam Akers, to Kyren Williams, who was just downright fantastic. Now, the reason why you'd be worried about Kyren Williams is not because Kyren Williams is magically going to just lose all of his value in terms of his skill set. It's not just going to fall off of him magically, right? It's not going to all just ooze off of him. But the worry is that they drafted Blake Corum. Now, is Blake Corum better than Kyren Williams? Who knows? But it definitely means to me that Kyren Williams is going to lose at least some of his workload. Now, is it going to be enough to sink the battleship of Kyren Williams? I don't think so. But when we're talking about Kyren Williams, when we're talking about Josh Jacobs, we're talking about Derrick Henry, we're talking about Isaiah Pacheco, the guys, spoiler alert, if you're listening to the audio, that are inside of the B tier at the running back position, he is the player most likely to lose his job from not getting hurt. He is by far and away, any of these running backs that we've talked about, he has the biggest chance to lose his job. Now, is he going to? I don't think so. I think there is, how there's a 1,000 simulations, we win in one of them, right? That's how I'm thinking about it. In 999% of the time, or 99.99999 infinite, right, percent of the time, Kyren Williams keeps his job. But there's a chance that Blake Corum hits him with the 619 Rey Mysterio and, hits him with the Julius Caesar backstab, right? So 12 games played, 11 starts, 13th in carries, 3rd in rushing yards, 24th in targets, 28th in receptions, 32nd in receiving yards, 3rd in total touchdowns. Do I expect him to go nuclear with 15 touchdowns in 12 games? Again, probably not, but it might be possible in LA. 8th in true yards per carry, 13th in yards per touch, 9th in yards created, and 2nd in dominator rating. Again, I am not going to sit here and besmirch the name of Kyren Williams. I think Kyren Williams is great, Tony the Tiger style. I think he is amazing. And I'd be willing to put him in the A tier if they just didn't draft Blake Corum, because there's enough worry for me to keep him out of the A tier. At number 8, we got Josh Jacobs of the Green Bay Packers, formerly of the Las Vegas Raiders. Underdog ADP, running back 9 at pick 30.6. Now, for about 14 seconds total, it seemed like we were going to get an Aaron Jones, Josh Jacobs backfield in Green Bay, which would just make your mouth salivate if you're a Packers fan. If you're a fantasy fan, that would suck absolute donkey cock, because you wouldn't want to have Jacobs and Jones on the same team. They're not on the same team. Jacobs in Green Bay, and now we see Aaron Jones in cold like Minnesota. So Josh Jacobs, running back 28 in PPR, running back 18 in PPR points per game last season, 13 games played, 13 starts on a Raiders team that was no bueno, missed the end of the season with a quad strain. But I will note Jahmyr White did look really good in Viva Las Vegas at the end of last season. 11th in carries, 24th in rushing yards, 19th in targets, 24th in receptions, 19th in receiving yards, and 24th in total touchdowns. First in the most amount of defenders in the box, on average, 7.2 defenders in the box. They were loading the box up for Josh Jacobs. They were ready for the run, because that Raiders offense, quarterback-wise, with Aiden O'Connell, AOC out there, it's not like Aiden O'Connell is striking fear into the defenses, right? And then a 30.2% dominator rating, ranking 7th. So when push comes to shove, when you try to articulate what happens or what happened and try to figure out what happened last season, to me, it's very simple. Josh Jacobs is solid. He's a above average running back, top percentile, top 12 running back in the NFL, in my opinion. He was on a team that was not very good, especially when he was playing early on in the season. And then once they fired McDaniels, things started to go a lot better. But by the time things started to go a lot better, Jacobs was out for the season with that quad strain. Quad. So, Jacobs kind of got the shit end of the stick, right? Because he wasn't there when everything kind of did that full-on 360, when the Raiders dropped the deuce on the chest of the LA Chargers in prime time. Everyone remembers that game, right? So I give a lot of credit to the turnaround of the Raiders offense. But Jacobs is now in Green Bay. He is now on a team where A.J. Dillon's behind him. And we all know A.J. Dillon is so bad that I don't even want to talk about it anymore. He's that bad. Jacobs has the throne there. He's got the crown. He's got the Aaron Jones fucking sombrero on. So Josh Jacobs on a Jordan Love offense that is going to be great yet again. I think the upside of Josh Jacobs is a guy that we've seen in the past can be really, really good in fantasy. I think he takes that back this year, 2024, as a top 8 back. At number 9, we got Derrick Henry, Tractor Cedo of the Baltimore Ravens. Underdog ADP running back 10 at pick 30. Now, Derrick Henry was just on a Titans team that the best way to describe him would just be not very good, right? Despite the fact that Vrabel is a genius, in my opinion, it just wasn't enough with what they had. The defense wasn't very good. They did beat my Dolphins and ultimately started the demise of my team, which makes me cry every single night. But at the end of the day, going from Tennessee to going from Baltimore is essentially like what some you see happen, right? Your friend loses his girlfriend, your friend might be a little overweight. Right now, I'm not saying that I'm like the most in shape person. I'm not, right? I'm built like a bag of milk, but at the end of the day, they lose that girl, and then that girl is now with someone that trades stocks every single day, fucking bought Bitcoin in 2014 and the rich, right? That's what happened. They went from some chubby guy to fucking some Bitcoin bro who's ripped and has a gazillion dollars. That's what just happened. Derrick Henry went from broke to straight up rich in Baltimore, right? One of the better rushing offenses in the NFL that is going to just see so much Derrick Henry. I like Keaton Mitchell, but if I'm being blatantly honest with you, there really isn't too much competition behind Henry. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that if Henry's healthy, he is clearly the number one back on that team. Running back 8 in PPR last season, 16 PPR points per game, tied with Bijan Robinson. 17 games played, number 1 in carries, number 2 in rushing yards. He's never going to get a lot of targets, never going to get a lot of receptions. 39th in targets, 36th in receptions. It's just, he gets 25 to 35 receptions. You're just happy with that, right? He's not Christian McCaffrey. He's not Breece Hall. 28th in receiving yards, 6th in total touchdowns, 10th in yards created, 9th in evaded tackles, 8th in breakaway run rate, and 5th in dominator rating. Again, every single year, we try to almost throw the downfall on Derrick Henry, just say it's going to happen. Derrick, he's getting older, Derrick Henry can't do it again. Then he does it again. Derrick Henry, he's going to get, right? No, he's not going to be able to do it again. And then he does it again, right? Every single fucking year without fail. Now he is on the Baltimore Ravens. Can I rank him higher? No. Why can't I rank him higher? Because he just doesn't catch passes. He just doesn't catch passes. So it's very hard to see a path for him being the number 1 running back. Again, we kind of shit on Kyren Williams a little bit unintentionally. There is a path for him to be the running back 1. Josh Jacobs, there is a path for him to be the running back number 1. I don't know if there's a path for Derrick Henry to be the running back 1 unless he hits these certified nuts on total touchdowns and rushes for like 1,800 yards. Is there a path? Yes, but the path isn't as likely as the guys ahead of him. At number 10, we got Isaiah Pacheco of the Kansas City Chiefs. Underdog ADP running back 13, pick 49.7. Again, if you've enjoyed this far, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button down below. So for Pacheco, running back 15 in PPR last year, 14 in PPR points per game. I'm hearing a lot of the best ball guys talking about how they think Isaiah Pacheco's ADP is about to explode, metaphorically, right? Go through the roof. And I think that's very possible that he continues to rise like your cock in the morning. Isaiah Pacheco was a guy that last season, towards the end of the season, was basically a top 8 back every single week. In the playoffs, he was amazing. The utilization was insane. And we don't even know if Jerick McKinnon's going to be back there. Behind Isaiah Pacheco right now is Clyde Edwards-Helaire, LaMichael, you LaMike that, P. Ryan, and Keontae Ingram. Pacheco is jolted into a spot with a lot more opportunity, even more opportunity than he had for a lot of last year. Jerick McKinnon is gone, which I think is the case. Be a lot more targets coming his way. Now, he did miss 3 games with a sprained shoulder towards the end of the season, but again, he was there for the playoffs, obviously, and a couple of games towards the end of the season. 205 carries last year, 22nd at running back, 18th in rushing yards, 22nd in targets, 17th in receptions, 22nd in receiving yards, 12th in total touchdowns, 12th in yards created, 15th in dominating rating, 11th in breakaway run rate, and 2nd in catch rate. Again, the biggest key here is looking at the end of last season, looking at the fact that if Jerick McKinnon is not back, we can see a lot more targets coming his way. A lot like what we were seeing towards the end of last season. Again, I'm not just going to project and say he's going to be a top 5 running back every single week. If I really thought that, I'd rank him a little bit higher. But right now, running back 13 on Underdog seems like a huge value for the starting running back on an offense as good as the Kansas City Chiefs. And if this guy luck boxes into 14 touchdowns, feeling's really high for Mr. Pacheco. Moving now to the C tier to close out today's video. We got running backs 11 and 12. At number 11, we got Devin Two Chains of the Miami Dolphins. Underdog ADP running back 8 at pick. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 22. Running back 24 last year in PPR, 5 in PPR points per game, 11 games played with 4 starts. Missed a few games last season with a knee sprain in the middle of the season. Now, Devin Achane is a guy that has Mostert around him, and they also just drafted Jalen Wright, another guy who is fast as fuck in the draft. So, I'm not really worried about the fact that I think that Achane is going to lose a bunch of volume to Wright and Mostert, but it's more of the fact that I see Wright being involved enough to where Mostert is also involved enough to where Achane won't be that safe of a bet every single week. Now, he's going to pull the rabbit out the hat every couple weeks. He's going to every couple of weeks have that game where he is why you won, right? He is going to have that game where he scores 30 plus points. He's going to have that game where he scores 3 touchdowns. He's going to have that game where your opponent literally got blasted because of him, right? He put the team on his back. And that might not just happen once. It might happen 3 or 4 times. But I think in terms of consistency, when you draft Devin Achane, you have to fully understand that he might be going up and down a little, right? Some games he rips off the top 5. Some games he's the running back 25. And that's okay. But you have to understand that when you draft him, that he's going to be boom or bust every week. Because I don't even think he's going to be getting the 12 carries a game that Gibbs was getting, 9.4 carries a game last year for Achane. 47th in carries, 25th in rushing yards, 35th in targets, 38th in receptions, 34th in receiving yards, and 9th in total touchdowns. Achane, Wright, Jalen Wright, and Mostert can catch passes. They're all very, very, very fast. So, right now in May, I don't know for sure if Achane's going to be the leader in the clubhouse in terms of touches for the 2024 season. I don't think he has to be to finish as a top 12 running back, but right now in May, kind of want to see some reports out of camp. Who's running with the ones the most? Who's seeing the most touches? Who is out there the most on the first team offense? In preseason, when he was out there for his 7 minutes of playtime total, what does the offense line up with? That will be very telling to where I want to move Achane. Now, I'm not going to overreact and rank him top 3 because I see him a lot more with the ones, but I might be willing to bump him up to the B tier. He might be able to surpass guys like Pacheco, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs in my rankings. Now, I'm just forecasting for the future. I'm not saying that is a guarantee to happen. So that's why we place him at running back 11. The guy is amazing. 2nd in true yards per carry, 1st in yards per touch, 3rd in juke rate, and 1st in breakaway run rate. Just have to understand that it is not a guarantee that Achane by getting the most amount of touches. They still have Mostert. Now, if they Mostert, I don't want to play with you anymore. They're going to use Mostert like a cum rag. Awesome. That's fine. Mostert, Achane, and Wright are all there. The big 3. Then Achane might end up having some really disappointing games that will push him closer to running back 12 than it will towards running back 5. To close out the C tier, for the purposes of today's video, there's more running backs in the C tier, which you will see in the top 24 running backs that will be coming out shortly. Joe Mixon of the Houston Texans, underdog ADP running back 15, pick 55.8. Now, to me, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out why I like Joe Mixon so much. Joe Mixon was the running back 6 in PPR last year, 11 in PPR points per game in Cincinnati. This was a Cincinnati team that came out the gates basically not even moving. Right? Like, you know how you ever watched a horse race where one of the horses just, for some reason, they don't got their head in the game, Troy Bolton style, and the gates open, and maybe the horse, just instead of running or galloping, whatever the fuck horses do, right? Instead of coming out there like the horse that won the Kentucky Derby, kind of chilling around, he's looking, he's lost in the moment, right? That's what happened to the Bengals. But it's not because they were lost in the moment. Joe Burrow was banged up. They sucked early on. Burrow finally gets healthy. Look at this. The Bengals, they're back, baby. And then Burrow gets hurt again. Through all that, Mixon was fine. Now Mixon is on one of the best offenses in the NFL with one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL in CJ Stroud. I'm ready to already say that. On a team where Devin Singletary, some certified bum before Houston, was able to put up numbers. So you tell me how Joe Mixon's not going to do it. Tell me. I don't see it. I don't see how he doesn't do it. I think he's going to be a top 12 running back. 5th in carries, 8th in rushing yards, 13th in targets, 9th in receptions, 12th in receiving yards, 6th in total touchdowns. Sneaky good at catching passes. 6th in yards created, 10th in dominator rating, and 14th in evaded tackles. Again, really, you don't need to be Albert Einstein to figure out why you should like Joe Mixon. Running back 15 off the board. Finished top 12 last year. Points per game and in finish. Going to Great offense that just had Devin Singletary ball out for them. Joe Mixon is way better than Devin Singletary. Again, say what you want about Joe Mixon. Maybe he's not the best guy on earth. Going to perform for fantasy football. That's all that matters, is getting fantasy football points. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Let me know if you agree with my top 12, you hate my top 12. Either way, leave it in the comments. Love you guys all so much. I hope you have a great one. Check out one of the videos on your screen if you haven't seen them already. I will see you guys tomorrow with another banger of a video. Love you guys. As always, have a great one. Good boy.